Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And I would imagine most everyone who's been on this blog for any length of time recognizes the gentleman that I have seated with me today. He is none other than Mr. Billy Broussard. Most recently you will be familiar with a number of features that we've done for him with regard to his property on Duchamp Road. But that's not why we're here today. We're here today going way back to really right near the beginning of this vlog, when I first met Mr. Broussard, and he alleged with incredibly strong evidence that he had there was FEMA fraud going on in some cleanup work that he did for Indian Bayou, and as a result of that, he has asserted that basically $1 million was diverted away from what was supposed to have gone to him and was displaced elsewhere. Now, there was to be an investigation of that. And by the way, Mr. Broussard has recently seen the features that we're doing with regard to Mr. Matthews, who is a sheriff candidate in Ascension Parish, and it brought up some old memories. And the reason for that is the gentleman that was heading the so-called investigation into this Indian Bayou fiasco was a gentleman named Mike Hebert. He was a Louisiana State Trooper at the time, and we're going to break away. Mr. Broussard was really trusting in Louisiana State Police to do an investigation, and yet we're going to break away and hear Mr. Hebert say, and I quote, or very close to verbatim, with regard to the FEMA fraud and contracts. I mean, we're not even going to discuss that. So let's break away and let you hear it straight from the horse's mouth, Mr. Mike Hebert. We'll be right back.
It's been made of possible criminal nature, and we've met with the district attorney's office. We provided them with the information that we received, and he tasked us with conducting interviews to see if there's merit within, the complaint, and which warrants further investigation. So the last interview I have to do, and like I said, because it leads or points to criminal, maybe possible criminal activity, I'm going to advise John of his rights. And then we'll go from there. As far as the contracts, everything about the possible FEMA fraud, we're not going to discuss that. Okay. I'm not even going to go into that. Yeah.
All righty, folks, you heard it. So now, Mr. Hebert is a candidate for sheriff in Cameron Parish. Now, he also ran back in 2019 unsuccessfully, and he's throwing his hat in the ring again. So, with Mr. Matthews' features with regard to the Ascension Parish Sheriff's race, Mr. Broussard said he'd like to chime in about the Cameron Parish Sheriff race. So with that, Mr. Broussard, I'm going to turn it over to you. We'll listen to whatever you've got to say today.
Yes, long story short, I met with Mr. Hebert, individuals of state police. Mr. Hebert was tasked with the investigation. This dates back to February 20th, 2015. He's the case agent, Michael S. Hebert. Badge number, I guess, 64.
Turn it a little more this way and I'll zoom in.
6493.
Okay, case agent. All right. Okay. Gotcha.
And what happened was he did somewhat of some sort of investigation. And I will say it's not just FEMA fraud. It's when you had a district like that goes through GOSAP, which GOSAP is the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, which is the state, then FEMA.
Okay.
So when there's a fraud involved, or misappropriation of funds, or whatever it might be, it's going through the state. They're presenting it to the state, and then the state on their behalf, and want to understand how that works, goes to FEMA. So in that, there's some crimes that could be at the state level. Okay. That's the reason why state police is is to investigate this. I gave Mr. Hebert a lot of documents. He's like, look, they were trying to decide, should they investigate, should they not. Then he contacted me and say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and we're going to open an investigation. So I'll provide him a whole bunch of documents. In those documents, which I'm going to focus on, which was important, was a letter. At that particular time, I had a letter. I was giving him just everything, like everything possible I had, regardless if I thought it was in my favor or not. So I gave him everything, but there was a letter from Kevin Davis, which was the director of GOSAP, and he says, well, I'm not investigating FEMA fraud, but he thought it was important to put that letter of Kevin Davis in, and even put a paragraph about that, and saying, you know, that bottom line, Kevin Davis and their office had did some, you know, looked into my state the problems that I felt that was there. They looked into it. Legislative auditor's office looked at it. They found no wrongdoing. So he wanted to put that in the report, like, hey, they cleared with this, you know, with GOSAP, legislative auditor. So Mr. Broussard is making these statements, which, you know, they've been cleared by the legislative auditor and GOSAP. So, you know, so he's, I guess, hanging his hat on, hey, Kevin Davis and GOSAP and them, they've cleared that. Well, interesting, after this investigation was done, they closed the investigation. However many months later, this was in February, started this investigation. So towards around this time of the year, around August 2015, after a meeting with Kevin Davis about this same exact letter, Senator Mills was kind enough to ask Kevin Davis, would you please reschedule this meeting to discuss this letter and this evidence we was looking at. I mean,
sure.
Senator Mills is, you know, looking at this, and I'm saying, look, this is what they're saying, but look at this evidence I have. And he goes, so he calls Kevin Davis. He was kind enough to, no problem. Him and his guy came. We all met in Senator Mills' office in Breaux Bridge. I showed it to Kevin Davis, sat there, said, this is what I got, Kevin Davis. Look at it. He said, okay. And I said, but you produced this letter. And he looks at it, he reads the letter. He goes, okay, I signed this letter, it's my signature, but I didn't write this letter. Ben Plyer wrote this letter.
Oh,
and he was not happy about it.
Can you briefly tell us, I know you've said it before, but can you briefly bring everybody up to speed on who Ben Plyer is? Ben
Plyer was the attorney for GOSAP.
Okay.
So in that, he was upset because it's like, sir, you put your name to this.
Yeah.
And he's looking at all the facts of that, and he could see. You know, there's almost, I mean, there's overwhelming evidence to support that there was some wrongdoing. I said, but you put this letter together. So he said, you know, so he said, okay. He said, he looks at me, puts it down, he goes, what do you want? I said, I want you, it's not just I want my money, I want to clear my name.
Sure.
I said, I would like for you to come with me to the district attorney's office.
District Attorney DeRozier?
DeRozier in Calcasieu, and let them know the facts about this. I mean, you're the director. Now you're looking at what's really going on. And we didn't have all this information when we went through the lawsuit, you know, through the courts. So he said, so interesting, after that meeting, we have me and him have a meeting at GOSAP's office over here in Baton Rouge. Interesting, that day, he says, come in the back. He sits me down and he puts Ben Plyer on the side, because he wasn't happy with Ben Plyer. And I remember a statement one of them said, is if need be, it won't be the first time Kevin Davis has to tell Ben Plyer, sit down and shut up. Because Kevin, I guess Ben Plyer got him in some other jams in the past, from what I understood. So he lets me go at Ben Plyer about the facts. And the letter, the whole 9 yards. Finally, Ben Plyer does the same thing, throws his hands up, go get, okay, what do you want? I said, I said, on top of that, I was trying to get to the bottom of all this, but you, Ben Plyer, quashed subpoenas. Yeah. I had subpoenaed Mark DeBosier, which was a deputy director of GOSAP, to come state the facts based upon meetings we've been having and information. He went over there, quashed a subpoena, didn't want the facts to be known. Plus, he was putting letters together, having Kevin Davis sign it, to mislead everyone, like, oh no, there's nothing to see here, move along. So he says, okay, what do you want? I said, repeated the same thing. I said, I want Kevin Davis to come with me to the district attorney's office and tell him the truth about the facts, about this additional money that they had. Well, in that, Ben Plyer tried to say, okay, look, there's no reason for the director to have to go all the way to Calcasieu Parish. I'll go. Kevin Davis I remember, was walking towards the door, and he spins around. He goes, no, I'm going to the meeting. So it shut down Ben Plyer. So Ben Plyer was kind of speechless, like he thought he was going to just, no, Kevin Davis, I'll take care of this. He goes, no, like he was already upset. Yeah, you wrote letters.
There's already a letter that doesn't.
Yeah, it paints like we cleared all this, and this does not look good. Definitely doesn't smell smell right. So in that, we have a meeting in Calcasieu Parish. And I mean, Kevin Davis is not going to bring himself, the deputy director, other individuals, including Ben Plyer, bring them to Calcasieu Parish, sit down with John DeRozier, and in the scheduling of all that meeting and all, I mean, you have to schedule all that. Senator Mills is helping me. There's emails. The district attorney says, we want state police to be in the meeting. Well, we get to so we all have the meeting scheduled. Michael Hebert's there. He's sitting behind the district attorney over there. We all sit down. Kevin Davis comes in. He says, look, this is the facts.
Okay.
He said, there was the original PW. There was a version to the PW. When y'all determine, which you got to remember, DeRosier his office represents the drainage district.
I understand. Well, I remember it.
Yeah, so he represents the drainage district. Got letters from his office, which acknowledges what the scope of work was, which was the same exact scope of work we were arguing what it was. So he has this conflict of interest. You ask me because that's his client. Well, Kevin Davis comes in and says, look, this is the facts. He said, y'all came to us, to GOSAP, the district, asking for additional money, for additional contract work. It's understood that Mr. Broussard he's the contractor out there doing the work. He does this additional work because it was only supposed to be the GPS sites. And here's the map. FEMA put this together. And all these little flags were marked GPS sites of where the blockages were that we were to bid on and we were to remove. But when we got out there, of course, the bayou, for whatever reasons, they didn't mark sites that they didn't see. But when we get out there, they said, you know what? It's in the PW. If you do find additional sites between the flags, it's the job of the applicant, the drainage district, go back to FEMA and ask for additional funds. Well, we send a letter to them. They take that based upon FAR statutes in the emails. They go and they get additional funding for us to remove as we're removing this. Remember too, we're doing this job in 2008. 2 hurricanes hit while we're in the middle of all this. So it's a big, wreck with everything going on with the government because 2 hurricanes hit that area. So in that, my communication with them says, yep, FEMA's approved it. That's why we continued working. FEMA's going to approve these additional sites that were in between these GPS sites. Well, Ben Bly says, well, the truth of the matter is the only thing eligible, we gave y'all additional money. It was to remove the additional debris that Mr. Broussard was removing. But he said it's understood, and what happened was, and we got that based upon their own employees, this is the beginning, just to say the beginning, end of the project. They took the money, part of the money, and they ended up going off the map way down here to the mouth of Indian Bayou by Sam Houston State Park and cleaning debris that wasn't even on the map.
All right.
So the point is, Ben Bly says,
and when you say they, you mean internal workers for Gravity District?
They went in and they did some work after I left. So
and your allegation was that that's where the money, when the additional funds got allocated that were specifically earmarked for you, actually went to them.
Right. They used a lot of that going down here. And Kevin Davis says, we gave you additional money. It was supposed to go to Mr. Broussard to do this additional work. He's telling them, look, y'all came to us. We didn't get y'all additional money to get the contractor to remove this additional debris. It's understood y'all took the money, used it to do work that wasn't even on the map of this project, and reported to us that it was at those sites. And if you remember right, you saw some emails within there saying, we need to find a way to make these additional sites disappear.
That email was sent by Kelly Fontenot.
Kelly Fontenot. So in that, they'd have to find a way to try to cook the books on the state and FEMA to get this reimbursement. So through that, in that meeting, I'm like, thank God. They're going to come to GOSAP, the director of GOSAP. Who am I to just say, look, I need you to come to this meeting? But he could see it. It's overwhelming evidence. Him and Mark DeBosier, great guys, said, you know what? It's overwhelming evidence of what happened here. So they tell this to the district attorney. I'm thinking, thank God I'm finally going to be able to get my money, clear my name. So after the meeting, GOSAP walks out. Mr. Hebert stays in there with the district attorney. Well, I get all my stuff together. I'll walk out towards the elevator. There's some construction being done. I remember I stood at the elevator forever. Well, I mean, as time went on, eventually, out of a back door, there comes Michael Hebert. So I said, great. I'm about to talk to just one-on-one with him. I said, okay. I said, well, I really appreciate you coming to this meeting. Do you need any more information in regards to supplementing your report? He said, I'm not supplementing my report.
Wow.
And I was blown away. I mean, here you are, you go, been the victim of this. I'm about to get this behind me, clear my name, the whole 9 yards, get paid for the work that I did, etc. And he goes, I'm not supplementing the report. I said, you just witnessed, this whole thing was scheduled for you to be here. You just witnessed everything that just happened. What do you mean you're not going to supplement your report? And he just, ever since that day, he refused to. And I begged state police over and over, please supplement the report. That clears my name. And you got to remember, that's 2015. 2016 is coming around. It was a governor's race. Well, Kevin Davis and all those guys that were there were about to, I mean,
2015 was the governor's race.
right. But what I'm saying is they were still in office.
Okay.
And so Kevin, the people that were in power at the time were making these statements. It was very important at that particular time to say, look, this year, come. I mean, right now you go ask Kevin Davis, he's no longer, you know, he can't speak on behalf of GOSAP.
Right.
But at the time he was. So I was begging for it to be in a supplement report, refused to. So my thing is it's very important that when these disasters happen. I mean, I can show you pictures of projects. I cleaned the Oak Grove lateral down in Cameron. Here's a picture of us right here, actually setting up the laser. We're cleaning up the Oak Grove lateral. So I didn't just do Indian Bayou project. I did a lot of different storm cleanup, and in that you meet a lot of the different people down there. After Hurricane Rita, we did a lot of work down there. Especially in an area, a little restaurant we call Shaw's. From there going east, we did a lot of the cleanup. Well, in that, matter of fact, that's my little cousin's airboat that we got, Jeff Landry's. Because my understanding he's now running for governor. So we was in a bond. We needed a boat, and Jeff said, "I'll help you out." So in that, the people down there in Cameron, that's places where hurricanes hit often.
Sure.
So the thing is, you can't have someone in charge of the justice and they going, we need this evidence, because sometimes it's, you know, who's going to be responsible for all the damage. You say it's act of God, nature, FEMA's going to come in, but if it's neglect on someone's, maybe some district's behalf, they didn't properly maintain something. When you do investigation like that, it's very important to figure out how they're going to handle, you know, what's eligible, how to get reimbursement, who's responsible for the damages, etc. Just like any wreck, anytime there's a disaster. So in that, the people in Cameron, when we were down there, we met a lot of different people because, you know, I'm a Broussard. It was easy for people to recognize the name. The guys that worked for me were, you know, some Cajun fellas down from St. Martin Parish, etc. So we got along great with the people. So it's not fair if an individual is going to be wants to be the head of, you know, the sheriff's office, and he has to come in and do some sort of investigation. If this is how he handles things, it scares me for the people after a disaster, if he's going to play politics with something like this, just to be able to buddy up with some group or whatever. Because when you're the victim and a storm hits your home or your property, and you're doing everything you can to recover from that, and if somebody's going to play politics and cover up the facts of what maybe really contributed to the disaster,
Question if he's the right man for the job.
Exactly. So, you know what?
So let me make sure I recap this correctly. You get all of this contradictory evidence that contradict the initial letter that was actually authored by Ben Playa, although it had Kevin Davis's signature on it. You hold a meeting. The two individuals who remain behind after the meeting are John DeRosier, the former district attorney of Calcasieu Parish, and Michael Hebert. Apparently they had a meeting where it was just the two of them, correct?
Yes, we left them in the meeting.
You left them, right. After he emerges out, you're feeling good, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So we can probably infer that some kind of discussion took place in that one-on-one meeting with John DeRosier, who himself is a controversial figure. We'll let it go at that. In fact, we'll give a link.
I mean,
we'll give a link to some problematic functions about DeRosier, but he's now history. But in terms of political office, but so apparently some kind of discussion went on in there to cause Michael Hebert to emerge from that meeting saying, "quote I won't be supplementing my report," unquote. And for that reason, you have severe heartburn about Mr. Hebert being the sheriff of Cameron Parish.
As a victim, I just thought that was the time I was going to be able to clear my name, and he decided to play apparently politics. And I've yet to be able to, you know, that was the perfect timing, because finally I had everyone at the table, and he decided to play politics and to become a sheriff and to play politics like that in an area like Cameron. It's not fair to the people.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you for coming on by, and may the best man win in that sheriff's election. But I definitely felt like, given what you went through, you certainly ought to have the opportunity to sound off about the candidacy of Michael Hebert. So thank you, Mr. Broussard.